All right. I'm joined by the Daily Interlake's Fritz neighbor, who was in attendance for the last two Grizzlies victories, some steamroll kind of wins for the Grizz. Fritz, big week in Grizzly football, Brawl the Wild, of course. College game day, the elephant in the room. It's coming to town. Just to start it out, I did want to get your thoughts covering football in the state of Montana for so long, just what it means, as a fan of Montana football and what you think it means for these programs.
Oh no, it's a very cool deal. Game day's been around a long time. Never been in Montana before. There was a big push by the Grizzlies last year for not for Cat-Griz, but for I think a game a week before. And we had movie stars and dignitaries putting things on Twitter saying come to Montana. Didn't work out. I think they went back to Ohio State for like the third time that season. But this time it worked. I mean, let's face it. If UCLA had won Saturday night, then game day wouldn't be here. But UCLA lost, kind of pooched it away, and so now the Bobcats get the crew back there in Bozeman, and for a great game, a great rivalry. This will be the 121st meeting. Both teams are ranked. Montana's playoff hopes, I think, are on the line. So it should be awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. Well said. That is good thing you mentioned that UCLA game because it really did come down to that late game. It just kind of rolled right into the Cats' favor, and both teams really get to benefit from it. You kind of just mentioned how the Grizzlies have their season on the line. I did want to ask you, looking at the playoff situation and everything, I kind of looked back last year. I did see, I believe, two FCS teams had 4 losses and still snuck in the postseason. Do you think this is kind of win and get in for the Grizz? Do you think it's like a win or go home kind of a game, or at least they need to have that mindset, or do you think they could lose a 4th game and possibly sneak in the playoffs?
I think, Bobby Houck mentioned it Saturday after their win over Eastern that he thought they were in win or lose.
Interesting.
But I look at the standings and they're in 6th. And UC Davis is playing great football and now has to head to Sac State. They're not going to be favored to beat Sac State, but they've been playing great football. If Davis wins, they only have 3 conference losses. If the Grizz lose, that's 4 conference losses. Now you're asking the FCS committee to put in 6 Big Sky teams. So I think Idaho gets in. I might be wrong about that too, but I think Idaho gets in. So yeah, I think the Grizz, I think they'd rather control their own destiny and say, let's win Saturday against the Bobcats. A lot like last year, the Grizz hadn't beaten last year the Grizz had not beaten a team with a winning record until Cat-Griz. This year is the same thing. If they're going to beat a winning team, it's going to have to be on Saturday, and then they're in. 8-3 gets you in. 7-4. I'm not absolutely certain that's going to work.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, honestly. I talked about it a little bit earlier, briefly on the other podcast I did. And it's kind of like, do you want to leave it to the committee? Do you want to leave that chance out there? So I agree. I think for safety reasons, the Grizz definitely need this one. You don't want to leave it to chance. Even if it's a close game and they lose, you still don't know for sure. So, yeah, it's not worth it. Speaking of kind of the Grizz and sitting here trying to fight for the playoffs, the one last thing I for sure wanted to ask you was, can you remember such a roller coaster season for the Grizz where they started out with all these expectations, championship hype, preseason player accolades, and now it all comes down to kind of the last week. You got to kind of win to make the playoffs. So it's kind of been a roller coaster, just seeing if anything comes to your mind that's been similar in the past.
In 2010, Robin Pflugrad took over for Bobby Houck as Houck left for UNLV. And if they'd beaten the Bobcats that year, they would have been in. And they fumbled twice inside the 5-yard line and lost. And that kept them out of the playoffs. Same thing not that long ago, Bobby's first year back. They fumbled inside the 5 and lost to the Bobcats. That was a weird year where the Grizz repeatedly had big leads and couldn't hold on to them. They just kind of faded at the end. It happened 3 or 4 times that year. The other one I can think of this year reminds me most of is like 1990, which I know it's a long time ago, but I'm old. And I was just starting to work at the Missoulian, and they were number 2 in the nation and had really high hopes. They've been a semifinalist the year before. And they blew a 3-touchdown or 3-score lead against Eastern Washington at home in the last 7 minutes of the game, and it just sank them. That number 2 rankings never treated the Grizz very well. In fact, they were number 2 this year when they lost to Idaho. So 1990, 2018, 2010, it happens. I mean, the sun has shined on the Grizzlies a lot of years, and this is one of those years where is it going to happen or not? We don't know for sure.
Yeah, no, well said. Thank you for that. And I think that's a good way to put it. Is the sun going to shine or not? Because there's been a couple weeks it's been shining pretty good, and then there's a couple gloomy weeks. So it's really one of those things heading into the final week of the season. You don't know fully what to expect. If this team's fully healthy with Lucas Johnson, they're different. So there's a lot of factors involved, but I just wanted to get some context there because there was so much preseason hype for it to potentially end without a playoff appearance would definitely be a little bit of a letdown. You know, we're going to wait and see what happens Saturday. I'm excited to see. But if there's anything else you want to get to, Fritz, if not, that was great. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, I just said it would be interesting. I mean, 7-4. Teams get in at 7-4. There's a 24-team field. So that helps. If it was a 16-team field, I'd say, got to win.
Yeah.
Now it just, they can really help themselves with a win, and I think it's possible. The Bobcats have a great offense and not a very good defense. Grizz or vice versa, a really good defense, at least against teams with losing records, and an offense that's kind of hit and miss. So it'll be a great Saturday.
100%. Styles make fights, and it's so true. The one team has the kind of an elite defense versus the elite offense. It's like who rolls out their best hand on Saturday. That's just what it's going to come down to, maybe who makes a couple plays. So, no, that's awesome. Thank you, Fritz. And from my understanding, I think you're going to be out there Saturday. Hopefully you make it out there and have a great time. That should be an exciting one.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to talk afterwards. Got a cold today, so sorry about that. But
no worries.
Yeah,
I'm sure your voice is going to be feeling it after yelling on Saturday too. So that'll be fun, but well worth it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you, Fritz. Much appreciated. Thank you for your time, and you have a great rest of your day.
All right, man. See ya.
All right. Thanks, Fritz. Epic stuff as always from Fritz. We'll get to a couple quotes from Bobby Houck and a couple quotes from Brent Vegan. Get a little more depth. I'll add some commentary to that. Wrap up our Brawl the Wild preview for the Interlake Sports Now. You can watch the full YouTube version of the regular Interlake Sports Now. We got the prep roundup. We got all that fun stuff. And then I did a Grizz and Cats preview. Had to add a little more depth. Had to get Fritz on here. Had to get his opinion. So definitely well worth it. We'll keep this one rolling. We'll get some quotes in here. We'll get some fun stuff. Thank you all for checking it out. And thank you again to Fritz for toughing it out and making it on here. He was covering back-to-back games, cold weather. That Cal Poly game was the snow game, so, I mean, it's understandable you lose your voice after those two. But so we'll see what happens Saturday. But shout out Fritz. Shout out everybody watching. We'll keep this one rock and rolling. All right. Thanks again to Fritz for joining us, taking the time to make that phone call. Like I said, much appreciated. I've joked about it before, the walking encyclopedia of Grizzlies knowledge. Learned a lot of Grizzlies football from that guy, a lot of Montana football. Hope you did too. Like I said before. All right, now let's get to a couple words from each team's coach. We'll talk Grizzlies first. We'll get to some quotes from Bobby Houck, and then we'll get to some quotes from Brent Vegan of Montana State afterwards, kind of round this Brawl of the Wild preview episode out. All right, first, we're going to get a quote from Bobby Houck. This is on the team's most recent win over Eastern Washington and how he thinks it has earned them a playoff spot.
Sure, it was great to get a dominating win over Eastern. Thought we played well in all three phases. There's some things we need to do better. We gave up too many yards. We weren't very good on third down on offense, and I didn't think we punted it well. So we'll keep working on everything, trying to be better. But that win puts us in the playoffs, I think. So now we can just get on and get ready for the next one.
Gotta like the confidence from Coach Houck. I just talked about that with Fritz. A little bit on the fence. I wouldn't leave it to the committee. But hey, head coach has been doing this a while. I'm guessing if anybody wants to get in there, it's him. He must feel confident. And that might be a little way of kind of saying in the press, hey, we're getting in for sure, as almost like a message to the FCS playoff committee. Like, hey, I'm confident. We just blew out Eastern Washington. We blew out Cal Poly. What's the question, man? We're in. So very confident statement from Coach Houck. Moving along, this was his statement when asked about the team's health. Lucas Johnson, starting quarterback, he's been dealing with some injury, left in the second half of last week's game, missed some time earlier this year. Here's what Coach Houck had to say about the Grizzlies' health as a team, and Johnson in particular, when asked.
So first question, you're talking about me personally. I'm good. I had a cold a couple weeks ago and feeling great. We're really hoping that everybody will be ready to play this weekend. That's where we are on Monday at 2, whatever it is. So we're hoping everybody will be ready to go.
Obviously, Coach Houck didn't exactly throw the ship at you and tell you exactly how the injury log's looking or anything like that. But the intention is for everybody to play. That's the game plan heading into the week, and that's big time for the Grizzlies because they're a different team with Lucas Johnson on the field. I've said that time and time again. You want your guy on the field in the biggest game of the season with the potential playoffs on the line. Daniel Britt looked really good in cleanup duty and relief duty, whatever you want to call it, last week. Garbage time's a lot different than the rivalry game against your biggest opponent with the playoffs on the line. So definitely want Johnson on the field. It's a good sign that Coach Houck at least hinted that the team is ready to play. And it's good that he's feeling better too. Apparently he had a cold, so it was worth throwing that out there. A little bit funny, but too funny. All right, keeping it moving. This is what Coach Houck had to say about the rivalry game. Good stuff.
In terms of the rivalry game, I know they're well coached. Coach Vegan does a great job, man. He's a good coach. He's a good man. I have a lot of respect for him and how he does it. He'll have them ready to go. I'm excited for this game. I love playing down there. I just always have. I've just always really enjoyed it. I think I saw my first college football game there and just kind of always have enjoyed the games down there. So we've played well lately. We're going to need to play well again in order to have a chance to win this game. I assume we'll be an underdog in the game, but we've beaten this opponent 73 times in the history of this rivalry, and outside of Nebraska's 91 over Kansas, I don't know if there's a Division I team with more wins over one opponent, so we kind of have a feeling like we ought to win this game too.
That was a nice little, started out very friendly and then ended with, yeah, but we've kind of little brothered Montana State for a while, so Coach Houck had to throw the record in there. But very true, Montana State is a good team. They're going to have to bring it this week. But hey, history's history. Can't knock them for bringing it up, but at the same time, got to live in the moment. It's a big week this week. This is when it matters most. But that's a pretty remarkable stat, though. Interesting stuff. All right, let's get to a little bit now from head coach of Montana State, Brett Vegan. Here's a quote from Brett Vegan about game day, being in town, the energy and the exposure related for the program, for the game in general.
Well, I know the exposure piece is huge. The energy here for Cat-Griz in our stadium, how much will it add to that? I don't know. I would imagine this is my first home game in the rivalry. I imagine the energy is pretty high anyways. So if it brings some more people out here, it'll dial it up a little bit. But the exposure, that's so hard to quantify. So thankful that it has gotten this position where they chose to come here and shine the light on the rivalry, on our conference, Bozeman, MSU, everything. It's going to be a great thing for our fans and our people.
Coach Vegan said that really well in the sense the energy is going to be there. Everybody knew that energy was going to be there regardless. Rivalry game, the student body's going to go crazy. The alumni is going to be pumped. The fans in general, it's going to be wild. Now, the exposure element from College Game Day, that was my first thought as well. I was like, it's great to celebrate the sport in Montana and the love for football, but both of these programs can benefit from showing off the passion there is for football in the state of Montana. When you're looking at FCS schools, it's very hard to find a level of fan engagement, passion across the board that we have in this state from the two teams and their fan bases, their programs. They're all in. So similar to North Dakota State, South Dakota State, who has been on game day in the past, North Dakota State over the years, they've slowly but surely built that brand up, become more of a national face. When you think FCS powerhouse, you think North Dakota State. Being on a show like Game Day helps. This is an opportunity for Montana State and Montana, both, the Grizzlies and the Bobcats, to put their face out there, put their name out there, show that they have a wild fan base who loves football. It's a state that loves the sport. And if you play football here, you're going to be, you have a chance to be a little bit of a, a Montana legend if you go out there and in the Brawl of the Wild game and make a name for yourself. So I think players watching, potential prep recruits out there around the country, what do you do Saturday morning when you wake up? You throw on college football, college game day. The national audience is going to be watching this one. It's great for both programs. I think Coach Vegan said it best. And I'm just excited to see, it's hard to quantify, like Coach said. But who knows 6 months from now when people are, or however many months from now it is till signing day, when kids are signing their letter of intent to pick where to go to school, you start thinking, should I go to the school close to home? Maybe not as engaged in the sport. Maybe not as into it. Yeah, they've been talking to me for a while, but wow, I just got an offer from one of those Montana schools where they go buck wild and get rowdy and have fun at the games. That can sell you. So I think it's big. The exposure is huge, and happy for both programs and football in the state. One last quote from Coach Vegan about the opportunity to host this game and what it means to have home field advantage.
To playing at home, no matter who you play, and you dial it up on this game, and you're playing at home versus in their stadium, I do think there's certainly a different feel. But at any rate, in either place, you can't let the moment get too big. It's still got to be between the white lines. The environment around you, I think you can feed off the emotion. But ultimately, if you can't focus on what's happening on any particular play, then all that is a bad influence. So, I think our guys have done a good job of playing within our home environment and letting it be an asset to us, and we will need it to be on Saturday.
Well said, Coach. Well said. When you think about it, the Bobcats have won 17 straight home games, an FCS leading streak. There is a lot of pressure on the line, and honestly, that has to be calming a little bit for Bobcats Nation, Bobcats fans. I did mention on our other Brawl of the Wild preview on the full episode of the Daily Interlake Now. You could go catch that on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're getting your podcast. That was my concern for Montana State. You're at home. There's going to be a lot of noise around the game now with college game day here. How do you respond? How do you leave it on the gridiron, take it one play at a time mindset? But to hear Coach Vegan bring that kind of a calm element, focus on the game, clearly he is not ready to get into the circus. It does not sound like he's worried about the shenanigans involved with game day and all that. He is worried about coaching up his squad, having them ready to play, and that's what it's all about. Because initially, when you think of a bunch of, college athletes, ESPN's in town, there's a lot going on, it's easy to be distracted. Usually, leadership starts at the top. When you have that head coach with the calming presence going into that game, I think it says a lot, and I think that's going to help the Bobcats. So that home field advantage, definitely well said, Coach Vegan. And, of course, that calming element to me is big because it's easy to kind of, like he said, feed off the emotions of the crowd and the hype and all this, and especially with game day in town, one of the oldest rivalries in the country. You need to just really be able to shake that off. And we're all human. You can't totally shake it off. You're going to get that adrenaline pumping. You're going to have that momentum, that energy running through the veins. At the end of the day, a lot of the times in a game like this, it comes down to who makes the less mistakes. And that's the problem with being juiced up like that. You get too pumped up. You get a little too fired up. Your game turns a little too emotional. Let me rack off that extra 3 or 4 yards rather than slide. Those kind of moments, you need to be able to contain those emotions, stay focused, and that's going to be crucial for both teams. So well said, Coach. And that'll pretty much do it for this Brawl of the Wild preview. I can't wait. College game days in town. It's going to be an absolute madhouse Saturday morning in Bozeman. So who's ever out there, if you have some video and want to tag me on Twitter at jdugan406, I'll gladly include it in next week's episode of the Interlake Sports Now because we'd love to get some footage of the party out there. It's going to be a good time. Happy for both programs. And basically to wrap it up, where I leave it at, like I said before, I said this on the Interlake Sports Now this week. You think of nationally, these big football states, people love to say Texas, Alabama. I think the passion for football in the state of Montana is right up there. And for it to get that national exposure is going to put a lot of eyes on these two programs. And maybe in the immediate future, you don't see anything in the next month or two. But look 6 months from now, a year from now, once they've hosted that game day, if it is a success, guess what? ESPN might be back for the Brawl of the Wild again because it was such a hit. The more eyes you see on that rivalry, kids want to play in a game like that. They want to play in an atmosphere like that. And considering the fact that Grizzlies probably really need that one to seal a playoff spot, that game's going to have a little bit of extra juice. Both teams are going to leave it all on the line as they already would in the rivalry game. But so to sum it up, I think this is great for the sport. I think nationally it's going to help with recruiting. It's going to help put eyes on these two programs. And, maybe build even a little more of a cult following because at the end of the day, people love energy, people love passion, and people love authenticity. And I'll say Montana football is pretty dang authentic because people leave their heart into it. They love it. And these kids are about to leave it all on the field this weekend. So let's not get lost in the madness at all. Let's give credit to those athletes, win or lose, on both sides because they're the ones going out there and putting on the show, the coaching staffs, all them. So major credits to both the Grizzlies and Bobcats squads. They both put themselves in a position for this game to be extra meaningful with the Bobcats potentially looking to get a playoff bye and the Grizzlies looking for that playoff spot. So they both, did their jobs leading up to the end of the season. Now we all get to enjoy it. Let's make sure to give those players, coaches, programs the recognition they deserve. So awesome stuff this week. Thank you to everybody for watching. Thanks again to Fritz for taking the time to power through and make that phone call. I know he was dealing with a little bit of he said he lost his voice a little bit, and now he's going out to the Grizz and Bobcats game at Bozeman this week. And I have a feeling it's going to be kind of loud, and you're going to need to do some yelling out there. So we're rooting for you, Fritz. I feel you. It's going to be a lot of energy out there. It's going to be loud out there. So I'm sure he'll be doing some more yelling. But that being said, thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you to Nomad for helping power the Interlake Sports Now. And thank you for Hagadone Media Group Montana for helping make this happen. Everybody out there, you have a good one. Enjoy the Brawl of the Wild. Who knows what we're going to be talking about next week? Hopefully, we're talking about a Grizzlies playoff berth and Montana State's, got a good matchup. Want to keep this show rolling. Maybe, who knows? Maybe the two meet up again in the playoffs. I'm sure, FCS college game day playoffs, maybe round 2 in 1 year. All right, I'm jumping the gun. I'll slow down. We'll live in the moment. Like Coach Vegan said, you got to kind of handle your business. I'm jumping ahead here. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Enjoy the game. Fun stuff. We'll see how it goes.